Glory we rise and never to fall. Here in a nation, flowing rivers of glory. Glory, glory, glory to the Father for making you a nation, a joy forevermore. Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty in our need, and your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God being the watchman of this nation. Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty in our need, and your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God being the watchman of this nation.
Good evening, fellow Ambazonians. Good evening to our beautiful people. Good evening to our brave and courageous people. And to all the defenders of our land, we send you our patriotic salute. Today, we have the privilege to have a direct conversation with someone that most of you already know. And that is the Vice President of Ambazonian Governing Council. But what most of you don't know is that Dr. Julius Nyyihi is one of Ambazonian finest in terms of the future of Ambazonia. Dr. Julius Nyyihi is an international institutional expert. He's an expert in institutional development and talent management. He's a lecturer of 4 global universities, 2 in China, 1 in Singapore, and 1 in Ireland. Welcome to the studio and welcome to the interview, the Vice President of Ambazonia Governing Council, Dr. Julius Nyyihi. Good evening, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Spokes, the firebrand of Ambazonia. I am delighted to be with you today to have a conversation, to educate, and to explain to the Ambazonian people the state of our revolution and the dynamics that underpin this revolution, as well as what the future looks like from the egg of sea perspective, based on the aspirations of the Ambazonian people. Thank you so much.
You look very fine this evening. You're wearing all Ambazonian colors this evening. Is it intentional or this is something that...
Yes, blue is the magic color. Ambazonia is blessed to have been adorned with these colors, blue and white. They're magical. It's intentional. When it's red, it's a different ball game. Thanks a lot.
With that being said, you are an international expert in institutional development. You've been one of the key architects in building and helping to shape what the egg of sea is all about. The organization that we have today, the caliber of men and women we have today, in designing its policies, its practices, the standards, its core values. Let me just ask you this as we get this program started. What made you, of all the movements that are in Ambazonia in terms of the liberation and the politics of Ambazonia, what made you decided, for you and Dr. Cho and others decided to form the Ambazonia Governing Council?
Thank you so much for that interesting question. The bottom line of my attachment to the Ambazonian Governing Council is twofold. One, the caliber of people that are in the Ambazonian Council are unmatched in terms of ideals, in terms of philosophy, in terms of stamina, and in terms of perseverance to achieve what is just, what is right, and what is natural freedom. It is also the second part is because the strategies developed by the organization and championed by the leader when I first met him, they align with my ethos. They align with my view of what life should be like for a people that have been denied dignity by a corrupt bunch of underperformers in Ambazonia called Cameroon. So these are the things that have drawn me to the egg of sea. And less people think that because I'm an institutionalist, I shape to a greater extent. No, the backroom staff, all the members of the egg of sea, heads of missions, heads of departments, the honor is to them. We only take the credit because we are the face, we are the leaders. But most of the credit goes to the backroom staff. And I applaud them for all the work they have done, they continuously do, and they will do for Ambazonia.
And in the formation of the Ambazonia Governing Council, what attracted you to the ideals, the values, the vision of Dr. Lucas Ayaba for you to be his best body and vice president?
As a researcher, having understood how to gather information, how to collect data, analyzed it. When I joined the egg of sea, when I met Dr. Cho in early 2017. But before I met him, I had collaborated with some staff that were trying to set up egg of sea in Ireland, late 2016. When I saw the man, I saw an honest, a sincere guy that can take a bullet for you. When I looked at the structures of the egg of sea at the time, I saw an organization that was focused. I saw an organization that was straight to the books. By straight to the book, I mean it followed exactly what I have been taught, what I researched on, and I realized, well, this is a match made in heaven. And this is where I can bring in my skills, my knowledge, my efforts, my contributions in order to grow a worthwhile cause that I am a victim of Cameroon's brutality, colonialism, and subjugation of the Amazonian people that push all of us abroad and that continues to maim and kill people. I saw that brought a system put in place at the onset by a group of people within, at that time, called the AGC, and I said, this is where freedom will come. And my thoughts, my instinct, and my followership of that structure has become true. It's going to become even clearer. And that is the organization that is going to liberate Ambazonia. Like it or leave it, the egg of sea and the ADF will liberate Ambazonia.
The Ambazonia Governing Council, it's a very principle-driven organization. Why is it so?
It's principle-driven. People make organizations. People make structures and processes work. It is principled because of the caliber of people. It is principled because of the caliber of leadership that you have within the egg of sea. Because you would understand that Cameroon, the colonial state in Ambazonia, has some of the best laws on earth. But because of corruption, because of impostor attitude, because of bad faith, and because of inexperience, and because of trial and error, they are unable to implement such structures. In the egg of C, you have people like yourself, you have people from the leader to those that man the different departments, the ADF, the egg of C, the communications. I could go on and on. These are people that have dignity. These are people that are true to the letter TRUE. And these are people that uphold the charter, the policies, the internal memos, and they cherish it. They find happiness in making sure that it works not for the benefit of individuals, but for the benefit of everyone else, all the Ambazonians, as well as non-egg of Cs. And that is what makes the egg of C stand out as the movement that comes out with innovative ideas. The movement that is always recreating, re-strategizing, being more dynamic, and change is the cornerstone, change for good of the Ambazonian people.
Most Ambazonians do not know that you are from the BLM. Ambazonians, especially Cameroon propagandists, have labeled the egg of C as that Bamindatin. Can you help us? I know that you're from the state of Libialem. You are from the Atlantic state. Help us. Is the egg of C Bamindatin?
Very far from it. I smile because for lack of information and for using Cameroon's propaganda, they think the egg of C is mostly controlled by people from the northern states. Far from it. This meeting is starting late because only Lebialem, those from Lebialem within the egg of C, had a meeting with our barrack commander in Lebialem Central. Is to tell you that within the egg of C, most of the high positions, even if you don't see them, these people work hard day in and night. They are the ladies, they are the men of valor from Coupe, from Dian, from Manfe, Umanyu, from Meme, and from Fako and Lebialem as well, that man the different structures of the egg of C. So to think that the egg of C is a Bamenda thing is far-fetched, is misunderstanding, is propaganda by enablers, by regime apologists, because they think propaganda can win freedom or can allow us to continuously be an appendage, a suffering one, of course, of Cameroon. But you and I, we know you are from Manu, I'm from Lebialem, the chief of staff is from Lebialem, the chairman of the National Council is from Coupe Maninguba, the national security advisor of the president, one of the highest positions in the egg of C, is from Coupe Maninguba. The DDC is from Indian, and so we could call all of them. The egg of C, to be honest, is equally distributed.
Also, the Secretary General of the organization, Bobadia,
exactly.
the Secretary of Finance,
and so on.
And so on. They are all the Secretary of Defense, some of the top commanders on the ground. So most of the high positions in the Ambazonia Governing Council are actually occupied by people from the Atlantic states than the Savannah states. All right. Thank you for providing such information. It's important for our people to know. Do you know how to say hello in Bangwa?
Yes, that is where I grew up, and I'm a proud Bangwa man. So, Musa Joa or Ewonkumbengwe I mean, it's an anye television no video. Ngore freedom bugyo asafua. Freedom amanze fua. Bugyo le endu Cameroon. Cameroon ache ndomen kunganga. So indeed, what I'm trying to say is I'm saying hello to all the Bangwa folks, and that they should believe in the egg of sea. They have seen how the egg of sea has differentiated itself from the impostors of the IGs of other movements, and that freedom is at hand. Cameroon is defeated. Cameroon is
I,
hanging by the thread in Ambazonia.
I actually wanted to ask you that question. What makes the egg of sea different? And why should
What makes
Ambazonians trust on the vision, the ideals, the policy, and the practices of egg of sea for their independence?
the egg of sea different is that our triad approach, self-defense, targeted diplomacy, and community mobilization, are approaches that were not just put in place haphazardly. They were not dictated by any external force like other movements. These strategies were carefully crafted based on research, based on evidence, based on international best practice. And the people that put that in place have and will always have Ambazonia at heart. The egg of sea is different because it is the only nationalist movement that will not blink, that have never blinked. And from day one, to differentiate itself, the president of the Ambazonian Governing Council, the leader of our War of Independence, Dr. Cho Ayaba, made it very clear against all odds that it wasn't going to be a walk in the park and that we were never going to concede. It's either we win and we are winning or we die fighting. That is what differentiates us from other movements. We have seen movements come and go, splinter into different factions, and elect social media activists who have no clue, who have not succeeded in their own personal life either, who have never researched, who have never taken a clue from best practices of how revolutions are run, to come and do trial methods on the lives of our people, to come and experiment some phantom policies and strategies, thinking that they could take us to Boya. These were sycophants. These were enablers recruited by Cameroon unknowingly. But I believe in Ambazonians. Just like Cameroon thought that for 60 years they have killed and buried the Ambazonian aspiration. Same too, Cameroon made the mistake to come within us and recruited its enablers to add to the so-called elites so that they could beat for Cameroon, but pretending as if they were on the side of the people. These are corrupt individuals that have eaten fat on the blood of Ambazonians. These are corrupt individuals that Ambazonians for once thought they were speaking for them and donated huge sums of money, and they siphoned it. They never provided, and that led to the killing of our people. That led to the killing of fighters on the ground. Let's make it clear. There will be no reconciliation. There will be no apologies accepted. There will be justice in Ambazonia. Everybody will account for their actions, intentionally or unintentionally, for what they did and did not do in order to stall or push the revolution one further day. That is a hallmark of an organization that sets itself apart from the egg of sea. And another thing that sets itself apart, it sets the egg of sea apart from other movements, is that the AGOC understands the international system. The AGOC understands Cameroon to the slightest bit. And whatever strategies and posture Cameroon takes, we already have an alternative. We already have a strategy to break their back. And that is how we have been able to navigate the international system to become a contender, a diplomatic contender, and to be able to become the dominant and the only voice speaking and prosecuting the march to freedom for the Amazonian people. That is the AGOC. There is no other movement. All the other movements are appendices of the regime, masked to fool, to deceive our people. But I believe in the Amazonian spirit. You can fool them, but not everybody and not every day. We have risen, and nothing is going to bring us down.
I would like to inform the Amazonian people. Today, the leader put out an internal message. The Amazonia Governing Council has generated a revenue of 100 million francs from the liberation tax as of today. So I will want to congratulate you. I want to congratulate the leader, and I want to congratulate all department heads, especially the liberation tax team. I want to congratulate our institutions on the ground that have been very focused on community mobilization, and I want to congratulate all our generals and our commanders for implementing the liberation tax. This is a major breakthrough for the liberation war. The Amazonian Defense Forces now have a budget of 100 million CFA as of today to fight Cameroon and to defeat Cameroon and to end the last remnants of Cameroon occupation military in our territory. I just want to ask you, when you read this message, how excited were you?
Freedom is one step closer. The Amazonian people, I will first start by congratulating them for embracing the liberation tax. As the days go by, more people call, more people reach out to pay their liberation tax. The Amazonian people have decided that they will fund their revolution and own the outcomes of the revolution. I was so excited, not because we have reached this milestone I knew we were going to reach. I was excited because we have reached the milestone in less than 1 year of launching the liberation tax. That in itself beats our projections. When we launched the liberation tax last year, June, we knew it would take a year before we get to 100,000 AMBA or colonial CFA francs. But in less than 10 months, in exactly 9 months, we have reached that amount. Thanks to the forces on the ground, thanks to the Amazonian people that believe in the AGOC, thanks to all the members of the AGOC, all the staff manning the different posts in the AGOC and the ADF, and thanks for believing in the nationalists. We might think that people just want to pay. No, people are following in brackets who know road. And who know road is the AGOC led by Dr. JULIUS NYIH. Because our strategies, our policies have stood the test of time. And even when people within the AGOC and other nationalist movements were on the underdogs, we never gave up. We contributed In our monthly fundraisers, we contributed directly to the coffers of the AGOC to keep the AGOC afloat. And today, a breakthrough, a game changer, the ultimate bullet that will nail a coffin that Biao and Cameroon will be buried in is the liberation tax. That is a bullet. It will nail the coffin itself. So, Ambazonians, we are not yet 1 year into the liberation tax, and you have done so good. It's not how much you contribute, but it is your persistence in contributing and knowing that the revolution depends on you, and knowing that every little helps. Your contribution cannot be too small. It cannot be too big either. Make sure you pay your liberation tax. Make sure you contribute to arm your forces. Ambazonia is a graveyard for Cameroon's adventure. Every Ambazonia will bear arms upon independence so that Cameroon or even Nigeria will never ever dream of stepping foot to think of colonizing Ambazonia. That is what the AGOC promises to the Ambazonian people. And Ambazonian people have responded that let's start building that nation. The liberation tax in itself has a political win in that by instituting a tax system that has collections and payment methods, it signals to the international community and to Cameroon itself, and Cameroon knows that we are the true owners of our land, that he who owns the land collect taxes, just like any legitimate government that runs a country collect taxes from its citizens. And that's what the Ambazonian Governing Council and the Ambazonian people have acclaimed their right to fund their revolution through the payment of their taxes to a representative of their aspirations to be free.
The leader made a statement that informed us of the origin of the liberation tax. Our Supreme Commander, General Efa, what made him to come up with the idea of the liberation tax, as he was the leader leading the war efforts on the ground? What inspired him? What is it that he saw on the ground? What type of research? Was it in terms of leading communities, protecting communities? This idea all came through their discussion with the communities in terms of how to fund and sustain the liberation effort. What inspired the liberation tax in the first place for the idea to be generated by the Supreme Commander and for the idea to be made as a liberation policy by the adopted and to be turned into a liberation national policy by the organization?
Thank you so much, Spokes, for this question. As I earlier said, there are many forward thinkers within the AGOC, in the diaspora, on ground zero, on ground one, and elsewhere. And one of our towering figures in this quest for freedom, General Efang, may his soul rest in power, was one of the key pillars for thinking forward. One of the hallmarks of the AGOC is that we think at least 2 years ahead. And every strategy, every policy that we implement, know we are forward thinking. And the idea of the liberation tax was a forward thinking approach to sustain the momentum, to sustain the funding. And that is why war needs money, war needs funds. And in order to sustain the funding mechanism for the war and to make Ambazonians, as I've said, take ownership of the outcome of their revolution, the general proposed and supported the establishment of the liberation tax. And also because our people used to pay taxes to the colonial regime to kill and maim them, falsely disappear them. Why not divert those taxes from the hands of a butcher to the hands of liberators in the Ague of Sea? This was the thinking. Sustainability, shunting the enemy, telling the enemy that we are not going to pay taxes to you anymore. We have our people to free. We will pay taxes to the rightful owners of the land, and they will use it in order to free us to provide educational, healthcare, community services, and other social cultural amenities that the people need. That was the basis of the liberation tax.
We will come back to the liberation tax. Now let's move to the elephant in Cameroon and the international community. Over recent months, we have seen metrics from the international system. We have seen indicators from experts across the globe, including the IMF, the World Bank, including International Crisis Group, international diplomats, if all speaking the same language. Recently, the World Bank put out a report to inform the world that Cameroon has become a fragile state. You were one of the architects of this policy in terms of dismantling, weakening, and destroying Cameroon. How was, in terms of crafting the policy, that all of you knew what it would do to Cameroon? Did you anticipate that within such a short period of time, the Ambazonian liberation struggle would be able to turn Cameroon into a pariah state?
Yes, indeed, but no. Yes, in the fact that we knew we're going to draw Cameroon out over a long period of time. No, in the sense that we didn't know that in less than 8 years, we will do what has taken other revolutions 15, 20 years to do. We didn't know that in less than 8 years, a state that was purported to be strong, to have the best army, was humbled by boys and girls that simply took out arms. When we were designing the policy, we knew that any successful government, any successful state, nation, is predicated on strong economic foundations, on strong socio-political foundations. And therefore, collapsing the foundations upon which viable states exist was a prerequisite for making that state to become unviable, for making that state to become incapable of gaining legitimacy even among its citizens. In less than 8 years, through economic sabotage, we have degraded Cameroon to the situation that it held before the 1960s. We have made Cameroon to be unable to service its external debt, to be able to have foreign reserves. Through economic sabotage and ungovernability, we have shown the world who controls Ambazonia. It is only a matter of time, and as I said in one of the strategic meetings, the fall of Cameroon will come so abruptly. That's the official fall of Cameroon. Will come so abruptly, and many people will not know. It will surprise us just the way when the United States declared that they were leaving Afghanistan. It took everybody by shock. Cameroon is defeated in Ambazonia. The indices are there to show. And the day Cameroon will finally pack out, by finally packing out officially, it will come as a surprise to us all, but not to the Ambazonian Governing Council, because we have been tracking the indices: economic collapse, unable to provide social amenities, dirt piling up in its cities, unable to generate enough electricity for its citizens, because it has unexpectedly poured in even their family savings into fighting a war that it was never meant to win, in fighting a war that it will never win, in trying to dissolve 2 cubes of sugar. Rather, the 2 cubes of sugar have absorbed all the water in the basin, and the nakedness of Cameroon in terms of its economy, in terms of its corrupt politicians, in terms of its inadequate, inexperienced, and less knowledgeable governance system and people, has been laid bare. And the Octagorian and those that man Cameroon, its institutions, I bet you, if you give Cameroon to 5 egg of seas, we will run it even better than what they are doing. And they know it. Going forward, through the contributions of the liberation tax and our monthly fundraisers, we will resupply our forces. We will make Cameroon not only to crawl, but to barely move, because Cameroon is down in Ambazonia. They have no option. Pack and go, or we'll send you back in body bags. And they know the collapse of Cameroon has already begun, with no successor to the Octagorian Mr. Paul Biya. The infighting is tense, and we know it. We have strategized since 2019, if you didn't know that, how to reposition Ambazonia due to an event that is steaming to take place in Cameroon. We know it and believe in the egg of sea. As I said, our policies and strategies are at least 2 years ahead of time. So every situation has been catered for, even if we don't say it.
I wanted to ask you this. Can you give us an overall political situation in Cameroon? Who's in charge now? Is it Mr. Biya who's in charge? How many axes in terms of centers of power are all positioning, fighting, preparing themselves to take over in Cameroon? Give us an overview and help us to understand the dynamics in terms of the clash of interest of who will succeed Mr. Biya.
Cameroon and Mr. Biya have no successor. And it is the making of Mr. Biya himself, because his governance apparatus has been based on tribal cleavages. And these tribal cleavages, even within his own major tribe, has divided, because Cameroon used these tribal cleavages, or divide and rule, in order to cling to power. And Cameroon, for fear of itself, by fear of itself, I mean Biya fearing everybody around him. That's how a country fears itself. Struggled to maintain himself in power at the expense of the state. That, combined with divide and rule, governance by ethnic cleavages, and our poster boys from the Ambazonian side, the likes of Atanganji, the likes of the Achidi Sachus, and so on and so forth, Enoni Ephraim, and so on. They bared all of these different cliques, thinking that they were going to succeed Biya. In Cameroon, as we speak, there are at least 4 different clans, or 4 different centers of power. You have the Ngongos axis, You have the Minister of Justice, Laurent Eso Axis. And then you have the brother Esingan Axis that have not even agreed. Then you have the poster boys, the Tanganjis, the so-called African elites and chiefs, the prime minister supporting the Biya axis, but supporting the Biya axis, thinking that the heir to the throne in Cameroon would be Frank Biya. So you have lots of different axes within Cameroon, and all of these are vying. They have stolen money. They have amazed weapons, waiting for the day when they would position themselves. And all the games you see is for Biya to put in place his son so that France can fit fat on Cameroon and on Ambazonia, most importantly. So the complete collapse of Cameroon did not start today. It started by germinating the seeds of division within the population by Biya. It started by Biya himself being a poster boy of France. Remember, unless you forget, the likes of Paul Biya, the likes of Ahidjo, those are not the nationalists in Cameroon. Cameroon is ruled by poster boys of France. The true nationalists were the Umnyobes, were the UPCs. Just like if Ambazonians were not careful, the likes of Sako, the likes of all the other movements, presidents, without really calling names, the likes of the jailed leaders, as they would call, Cameroon would have worked with them to put them to manage the affairs of Ambazonia on behalf of Cameroon. That is how Cameroon recruited enablers such as Ahidjo, recruited sellouts such as Paul Biya, and presented them to Cameroon as the true leaders, whereas their true leaders were massacred. And it is in the same vein that Cameroon, through its secret service, positioned some Ambazonians when this revolution started so that they could speak or purport to speak to Ambazonia, whereas they were baiting for Cameroon. But Ambazonians being so wise, we know the game. If Cameroon could not fool us in the last 60 years, they will be unable to ever fool us again.
Where does Camto, Nichu, obviously you know that the SDF is it's history now, so they are non-existent. Where does Camto, Nichu, and their alliance with Ayoktabe and SCAF and most of these assembly of Confucianists, where do they fit into the purported political transition being championed by Mr. Camto and Mr. Nichu? As you know, let me just add one more thing, VP. Recently, Nichu came out and made a statement that he had meetings with Ambazonian activists of SCAF. They've had meetings with other movements. They had meeting with Mr. Yoktabe in jail and his colleagues. And a day or two after, Mr. Tanganji came out and sent them a very strong message that any political alliance in the future or now formed by any opposition party with other opposition party, or as they termed secessionist terrorist leaders in jail, are hereby banned. Where does that so first, where does the Camto Ayoktabe political transition axis, where do they fit into this? And now that that alliance has been banned by the colonial minister of territorial administration, Mr. Tanganji, Where does that leave? Where does that leave Ayok Tabe in terms of his political calculation? Was this miscalculation? Miscalculation? Was this political misadventurism? What? Where do they go from here?
They go to Cameroon. Let me start even before this alliance. The purported alliance between Mebengo and Ayuk Tabe back in the days was an attempt to pursue their one Cameroon agenda. Kamto, Ningcho, and the rest, Ambazonians should know they are Cameroonians. Anything they say, they do, is not for the benefit of Ambazonia. It's to pursue their one Cameroonian agenda. And as such, their meeting with Ayuk Tabe, the meetings of the Ellis Smith with Siseko, with Chris Anu, all of them fall in the same rank to take you back to one Cameroon. And this their alliance was not for the benefit of Ambazonia. It was to continue the subjugation, the sellout that the Munas did in the 60s and the 70s. Remember, when slaves were fighting to be free, one of the greatest opposition to their freedom were slaves themselves. As Ambazonia is fighting to be free, the greatest opposition to our freedom is not even Cameroon. They are the Ayuk Tabes. They are the Sakos. They are the Eric Tatos. They are my infamous countryman, Chris Anu, and the rest. We can name them, and let me tell them. Some people will leave jail after independence and still face another jail in Cameroon. That's a fact. Let's be honest. I know sometimes people don't like to hear the honest truth from the Ambazonian Governing Council because they think we are pompous. We are not pompous. We are barely taking a stand. As people that want to be free, you need to have that conviction. You need to take an uncompromising stand for your freedom. Freedom is not given on a platter of gold, as Dr. Chwayaba would say. It is fought, won, and won through hard sacrifices. That alliance in itself, those who accepted, both in jail and out of jail, even in the diaspora, to have a discussion with Ninja, with Kamto, with regards to Ambazonia, it's not only a treasonous act, it is a total miscalculation, which is tantamount to all the different activities, all the different projects, all the different strategies, policies that these people have embarked upon in the past because they were short-sighted and it has failed them. And this one will still fail them because the poster boy in Cameroon's government, Atanganji and all the others, they are bent to make sure that we don't have our independence. But they are joking with the wrong generation. This is the generation that's going to end Cameroon's reign in Ambazonia. And we're going to collapse Cameroon. Cameroon will split into 4 halves.
All right, Mr. VP, let me come back to the question. Where does the Kamto Ayok Tabe political alliance axis fits into the infighting in Cameroon?
That axis, to be honest, is not going to go anywhere. That axis fits with the opposition parties that hope to gain power. But as I said, that axis is not aligned to any of it. It fits with the Bami axis. Let's put it that way. Because remember, the Bamilikis think, some of them even purport to be Ambazonians. And that axis in itself is a purported alternative to all the different factions that are mostly contained within the current government of the colonial state, Cameroon. And as such, that axis tries to use the Camto and the nature axis are trying to use what we call the sympathy approach. Because bear in mind, there are sympathizers of Ambazonians within Cameroon, and they are Ambazonians. So for their hope, they think they can use the Ayuktabe axis, they can use the IGs that are in South Africa, in the US, and Germany, and so on, axis, in order to come to power, promising that, oh, they will do something for the Ambazonian people. But Camto has made it clear that he doesn't see Ambazonia as a separate state. The Ambazonia was not a separate state. He even went as far as concocting a history from 1887, how the German came, but failed to understand that the current state system in the world is based on the post-Second World War apparatus, where by then Ambazonia had already become a state after 1919, the First World War.
So do you see, so Mr. VP, let me know, do you see these various factions? They know Atanganji Paul, Laurent Esso will not change the constitution of Cameroon or amend the electoral codes. That system has been entrenched since Biya came into power. So how would opposition, I don't know whether they have learned from what happened to Nijon Fronde. We don't know if these people read history. We don't know if they understand who Biya is and who the people that Biya has surrounded himself, who they are. Let me ask you this. Do you see a potential? Are there any indicators of a potential that some of these factions will use arms to gain power in Cameroon?
We have studied Cameroon. Before the triad approach was put in place, Cameroon was studied, and it has proven us right. Cameroon's electoral code will not change. Cameroon's constitution is not going to change. Biya has clung onto power by being steadfast. And to deal with a steadfast leader, you have to be steadfast as well. The Camtos, the Ninchers, the alliance with all the IGs and so on is going nowhere. They have not learned from history. These are simply, the Ayub Tabes and the rest, these are simply opportunists. Just like in the Ambazonian War of Independence, many opportunists have come and go because they thought that was a glimmer of hope. When they heard about negotiations, they jumped into it. We warned them that Cameroon does not negotiate. Cameroon will be won on the battlefield through communication, community mobilization, liberation tax, and iron for iron in gutter hole for gutter hole, rooftop by rooftop. That is how you will win Cameroon. And it has proven us right. So the alliance in itself is not going to change anything in Cameroon. Cameroon and Biya does not move. When faced with difficulties, they entrench themselves in a hardline position. And they're going to come hard on these people. And as I said, these are naive individuals that saw the war as a bandwagon to jump on and benefit from it. They don't read history. They don't do research. They don't have the experience to use best practice or to rely on what works. And it's going to be the same fate.
Was that another attempt through this type of arrangements? Was that another attempt by the regime to launch an alternative to the Canada talks? Let's walk through some of the solutions Cameroon has purported to provide as solutions to the conflict. They started off by denying that there was a conflict. They started off by denying that there was a problem. Then, when they accepted that there was a problem and it was actually an armed conflict, they instituted the Commission of Disarmament. That failed. They quickly said it was a language problem. They redefined the problem and said it was a language problem. And then they created the Commission for Bilingualism and Multiculturalism. That failed. Then they said it was a governance structural problem. And so they called for the Grand National Monologue and brought some paid Ambazonians from the diaspora. They used them, they dumped them, they discarded them. The Grand National Dialogue failed. Then they came out of that a year later. They says, oh, they are going to give Grand Ambazonian special status. You know what happened to that? That failed. Then they said, oh, with special status, they are launching decentralization, a policy that they adopted in 1996. They never implemented it. They introduced decentralization. It's going nowhere. 1 year later, Mr. Biya launched the Biya's reconstruction project. That failed. Then they came up with a policy of, oh, the war is over. We have won the war. It's now normalization. So these are all the various manipulative and propagandist steps that the Biya's regime has taken to deceive the international community, the Camerooners, and the Ambazonian people that it's doing something. That's what I wanted to ask you. Was all this political alliance one of those underground steps being taken to manipulate the Ambazonian people that they're actually doing something? Or was it a counter to the policies of the AGOFC that has won Ambazonia international admiration through Canada talks that obviously Cameroon later on was challenged by junior ministers? I know it's a very long question, but I wanted to simplify.
It is indeed both. In that, Cameroon, even with the previous head of the Secret Service, Eko, remember he launched some talks with the Ayub Tabes and the faction that was out of jail, the Sako's team. All of that and all the other stuff that have gone before this is to show Ambazonian people that they're trying to do something. But bear in mind, Cameroon have tried everything in their rule book. Their rule book is corruption, is manipulation, and that's what they do try. It is also, and remember, that Cameroon would not like to talk to the AGOFC directly for now, until they know that they have a counter to the AGOFC that is on its sides. That is the miscalculation they had when they went to Canada, because they thought they had recruited, even within the AGOFC, the likes of Capo Daniel that will go and provide a counterweight and will sign up for something in Canada. It failed. So Cameroon will never stop trying different manipulative methods in order to fool the Ambazonian people to think that it is trying to solve the problem that it defines by itself and not what Ambazonian people want. Cameroon would not go on the negotiation table as it is so weak. Cameroon want to go on the negotiation table with some Ambazonians as a counterweight to the AGOFC. And all of these shenanigans that are ongoing is to find that counterweight. I have bad news for them. We know the workings, ins and outs of Cameroon and those enablers, as we would call them, and those traitors. And we know how to deal with them. Cameroon cannot defeat Ambazonia on the battlefield. Cameroon cannot defeat the Ambazonian Governing Council on the negotiation table. We would send one or two of our middle-ranking officials, and they will beat the entire Cameroon on the negotiation table. So Cameroon knows that, and it plays around with different configurations of enablers. They promote them today. When it doesn't work, they dump them tomorrow. They look for other bunches of hungry people from Ambazonia origin. They use them to try to see if they can be able to move all those that have galvanized support, all those that are following the Ambazonia Governing Council, because they know that we are the true nationalists. We have Ambazonia at heart. They will try to bring them on their side. And that's what they did, but failed. And bear in mind, Cameroon follows the French dogmatic approach in terms of governance and political posture. So they will never stop trying until they are defeated. So if we think this is the last attempt to manipulate the Ambazonian people, to provide a counterweight to the Ambazonian Governing Council, to pretend as if they are doing something to solve the problem, more is yet to come from Cameroon. But we are up for the task, as we know them in and out.
You are up for the task. The leader has said in one of his interviews recently that within the Ambazonian liberation political space, most Ambazonian leaders have become international disgraced. They have humiliated Ambazonians using the liberation as a political platform. They have not shown any sign of nationalism or patriotism or any sign of interest and value for our people. And therefore, the Ambazonia Governing Council policy is now to unite the fighting forces on the ground as the Liberation Front. Based on all what you've said, would the Ambazonia Governing Council continue to try to see if there are others that are interested to work with the Ambazonia Governing Council, or the AGOVC is going to completely pivot and focus on uniting and bringing nationalist forces to work together, to collaborate together, and use the resources of the liberation tax to help them to get Cameroon out of our land?
We will do both. We will continue to make sure that there is cohesion, there is understanding, and there is collaboration between the forces on the ground. On the political realm, in order to pursue equity and inclusivity, the Ambazonian Governing Council will continue to build bridges with nationalists,
Okay.
full nationalists, so that we can prosecute this revolution to its conclusive end without leaving any true nationalists behind. However, for those impostors and those one person or one family organizations or movements that have used the revolution to position themselves, to behave greedy, to pretend as if they are speaking for Ambazonia, we will not and have not talked to them. The ones went and congregated under the banner of the CDN, and their main challenger in that group was the AGOVC. Once we officially told them that we're not going to collaborate with them, it's more than a year today. You've not heard a voice anymore. However, in the background, the leadership has held discussions with nationalists, and by nationalists we mean true nationalists, who have nothing else than to free Ambazonians from Cameroon clutches. We have engaged them to see how we can work comprehensively and effectively to push Cameroon out and to dilute the propaganda from Cameroon and Ambazonians enablers, Ambazonian traitors that are abound.
The leader has said the liberation tax is not only for ADF forces, that the mobilization of the liberation tax is for all Ambazonian nationalist forces. What message do you have for forces on the ground that are looking up to a day where they can have when they can have what they need and what is required for them to be effective on the battlefield, especially with heavy caliber things like the RPGs and heavy caliber machine guns. What message do you have for these forces in terms of the mobilization of the liberation tax and the funds of the liberation tax to these nationalist forces?
Ambazonian fighters on the ground are upbeat. At the inception of the liberation tax, we told these valiant soldiers that we would reach a threshold before we start spending the money. Of the 100,000, 100 million rather,
100,
that has been raised so far, no dime has been spent. Once we start spending that money, we will let you know. And every fighter that honors the flag, every fighter that is not manipulated and has not been manipulated, and who is fighting for the flag, will be supplied. Upon independence, every Ambazonia will own a gun and bullets to defend his or herself. So
I'm ready.
if you fight for Ambazonia nowadays, know that when we start spending the liberation tax money, which has been contributed by all Ambazonians, you will be supplied and you will pledge allegiance to the flag and nothing but the flag. And we have systems, the code of conduct, structures in place in order to make sure that all fighting forces on the ground adhere to such structures and code of conduct and defend Ambazonia and nothing but Ambazonia. Forces on the ground are wiser nowadays than when the revolution started, and they are able to differentiate opportunists from the real nationalists. And they've made it clear that the Ambazonian Governing Council and the ADF are the leading force, and they are collaborating day in, day out with the strongest, the biggest liberating force on the ground. And as the president has said, we will look after you. You will have the material that is needed once we start spending the liberation tax.
The In the next 3 days, the Ambazonia Governing Council will be the Ambazonia Governing Council U.S. mission will be leading our fundraiser for the end of this month, and you've always been very supportive of all missions and our public fundraiser campaign. For all Ambazonians that are watching tonight, both on the ground and in the diaspora, what message do you have for them in terms of these liberation tax funds? What are they used for? Why do we have monthly fundraisers? Why is it important? Why is it important for Ambazonians to continuously support these public monthly fundraisers?
We are at war. War is very expensive. And in that regard, the continuous financial support and moral support of the Ambazonian people over the years, and in just over 2 years since we initiated the monthly fundraiser, have been used to resupply the forces. The liberation tax is like a gigantic pot that would be used to purchase heavy duty equipment in bulk. So it's a bulk spending money. Whereas the monthly fundraisers are like your petty cash that are used for daily supplies to the forces. And I encourage each and everyone to not only pay your liberation tax, but to make sure that every month, as you always do, you chip in something. As I said, it's not how much you chip in that counts, but what wins wars is your perseverance and your continuity in doing what has proven to be right. The monthly fundraisers have resupplied our forces. They have shown that they can be used to good effect to punish Cameroon on the battlefield, to provide solace to the families of the fallen forces, to provide basic health care to those that fight on the ground, but to local communities, to also help in community schools. We have seen the education board use some of these funds. So it is our plea to Ambazonians to contribute coming this Saturday to the fundraiser that is hosted by the biggest donor within the Egg of Sea, the US Egg of Sea mission. Your money has always been used diligently. Your money would be used diligently. And once you chip in whatever you have, know that your money goes a long way in order to give to the forces what they need to prosecute the war to its conclusive end, to inflict more economic damage to the economy of Cameroon, to inflict more battlefield victories on Cameroon. So we wait on you all to join the Zoom meeting on Saturday, the 30th of March.
Fellow Ambazonians, we don't come to the end of our interview today with the Vice President of Ambazonia Governing Council for a closing remarks. I want me to talk for Pidgin. If you want to talk now for Soso for country talk, me Soso talking. Mr. Vice President, you don't lead the Ambazonia Governing Council very well. You don't build one of the finest, you don't contribute for build one of the finest organization where Ambazonia people that you count on, they don't depend on it for the last 7 years. Now, what did it bring you happiness for fight for the Ambazonia people, their independence? And the people that did listen for you for today, what it be a legacy we want to leave out for them?
Thank you so much, Mr. Spokes. For today, wait way don't bring me joy too much. Now the shake no day. Shake no day for no Ambazonian, especially the nationalists wants them. Wait way don't bring me joy. Now how the strategies they don't put in place. Now how the contributions the way our people they still contribute despite all the impostors the way they don't fool them, they contribute to them before. They don't say, you know what, I go still contribute until I get freedom. Now that thing they bring me joy. Because our people don't embrace Ambazonia. They don't say Cameroon no day. For me, which way will make me feel happy. I want to be remembered for be one of those people where they will bring an end to Cameroon's brutality for Ambazonia. I want to be remembered as person where it no be sell out, as person where it no be promote Cameroon agenda. Why we be alive? As person where it be put Ambazonia first for anything we begin do. And I want me always put Ambazonia first. Pray for our soldiers, support our soldiers, fund our soldiers, and then do it way right. Be proud of your flag. Be proud of Ambazonia. We will kick Cameroon out. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. You know, say be a very busy man. Before you want come for studio here, we actually attend a 1.5 hour defense meeting. And then you finish that one, we can't spend more than 1 hour for a year. We talk for the Ambazonian people, for you for update them, for you for tell them what did happen, for you for assure them, and for you for let them know say they say La Republique, a time for Ambazonia don't finish. As you don't talk shake in a day. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. And one, thank you very much for your services, for your contribution to the Ambazonian people, their freedom. Thank you very much. May God bless you and your family. Good night, sir.
Good night, sir. Thank you too. Thanks a lot, viewers. Thanks.
Fellow Ambazonians, we don't come to the end of our program today with this interview with the Vice President of Ambazonia Governing Council. When I get yourself a good night, as the Vice President talk, the end, it don't come for Cameroon, which it don't remain for them. Now wahala, it is for their hand. They don't know what to do, they don't know what to go. As for Ambazonians, as the Vice President don't talk, tell we're there for a very good place. Today, as the Vice President talk, and as we report them, the Ambazonian people them, through the liberation tax, they get money now for ADF, a budget. Today, that money don't reach 100 million. With just the start. La Republique don't finish. We must make sure say we give our forces what they need them. Forgive our people them the freedom and the independence. For this liberation struggle, there is no competition with Ambazonia Governing Council or no other movement. It comes second, it comes third, it comes fourth. No movement not come even number 10 place with the EGOFC. The EGOFC, as the leader don't talk, could deliver freedom and independence for the Ambazonian people them together with all the nationalist movement and the nationalist forces. Shake in a day. I want to thank our studio people them where they sacrifice a lot for host this kind very big programs. A lot of work that they put in, a lot of work in the background. Spend so many hours for prepare for so many nights for host this kind of program. One thank our studio technicians, and they do all these things on a voluntary basis. No money to pay them. All them whether they mount the TV, the people there they get full-time work. The people there they get families for take care of. They work 2 jobs, and then they still volunteer for the liberation for run this TV 24/7. Now the spirit of AGOF see this, and the spirit of the Ambazonian people this. I thank you plenty. May God bless you now. Good night for mommy and papa them, and we're picking them. We love you plenty. Good night.
Number two, you talk about power tussle. This is not about power tussle. Chris Anu is not looking forward to becoming the president of Ambazonia. Number two, you talk about power tussle. This is not about power tussle. Chris Anu is not looking forward to becoming the president of Ambazonia. Number two, you talk about power tussle. This is not about power tussle. Chris Anu is not looking forward to becoming the president of Ambazonia. But one thing I know, Mimi Mefo, is the CDC deal. Dr. Samuel Komesago cannot say it did not exist because I took it to him. I'm going to end it there. But one thing I know, Mimi Mefo, is the CDC deal. Dr. Samuel Komesago cannot say it did not exist because I took it to him. I'm going to end it there.
One of the foundation of my leadership and my upbringing is the truth. I speak the truth. I don't tell lies. I have never been telling lies, never. I uphold virtue.
Welcome to ACN.
Hail this land of glory, we the Ambazonians, special loyalty. Praises to our Savior who granted us the freedom. Allegiance to the hero who fought along the gather. Glory to glory, we rise and never to fall. Here in a nation, flowing rivers and holy. Glory, glory, glory to the Father for making you a nation, a joy forevermore. Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty, meeting our need. And your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God being the watchman of this nation. Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty, meeting our need. And your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God being the watchman of this nation.